For years, Lin Xuangshuang and I waged open and covert battles in the imperial harem. Today you'd send me poison pills. Tomorrow I'd scheme to have you ambushed. Yet none could rival the emperor's true love for his delicate white flower. I've seen these schemes played out in palace intrigue dramas, yet you still dare to harm me? How utterly deluded. After both of us were banished to the cold palace by the emperor, we opened our eyes to find ourselves back at the moment we first entered the palace. I opened my eyes groggily. The palace before me differed in decor from the cold palace, yet it lacked the opulence of my former chambers. My head pounded violently. I recalled that just a second ago, I'd been choking Lin Xuangshuang while ranting about how useless she was. The next moment, I passed out. When I woke up, I was here. Simple carved patterns. An empty palace. Scattered maidservants. Was this my residence when I first entered the palace? How did I end up here? I touched my face. It felt like the soft, dewy skin of a young girl, not the dry, wrinkled face I had in the cold palace. In the bronze mirror, I was still me, just a younger, more beautiful version of myself. I'm back to when I first entered the palace? How could choking Lin Xuangshuang bring me back? If I'd known, I would have squeezed harder. Wouldn't it have been better to go back before entering the palace? Then I wouldn't have to endure the suffocating atmosphere of this imperial compound. Sigh. I must hurry and find Lin Xuangshuang. If I can return, surely she can too. I dashed out of the courtyard. I remembered Lin Xuangshuang lived in the neighboring palace at this time. Just as I was about to dash out of the Purple Water Palace, I saw Lin Xuangshuang running toward me. We both froze in place. This version of Lin Xuangshuang was younger, her face radiating carefree spirit, her eyes bright and lively. Though clad in palace robes, her imposing, martial aura was impossible to conceal. How wonderful, this was how she should be. As the legitimate daughter of the general of the flying cavalry, raised among horses and swords, this was the heroic spirit she was meant to embody. Jiang Yu, are you crazy? Why are you crying at me? Lin Xuangshuang frowned disapprovingly, glaring at me. You haven't gone dumb, have you? Even if you are, I won't be. I angrily smacked her forehead. I just think things are so perfect right now. As I spoke, tears welled up again. Looks like you really have gone soft. But you're back, right? Seeing you like this. You're not the Jiang Yu I knew before. If I'd met the old Jiang Yu, I could have crushed her with just my pinky. Lin Xuangshuang even gestured with her little finger. I rolled my eyes at her, always fighting and causing trouble. Even after 2 lifetimes, you still haven't grown a brain. Like you have one. Jiang Yu. We chased each other around the courtyard, bickering and wrestling. The maids and eunuchs gaped in astonishment. I was Jiang Yu, the legitimate daughter of the grand tutor from the prestigious Jiang clan, trained since childhood in the arts of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I was destined for the palace to represent the scholar official faction. Lin Xuangshuang, however, was the daughter of a military commander. Her father's achievements overshadowed the emperor's. Yet he had only 2 legitimate daughters. Claiming her younger sister was still too young, he sent her to the palace instead. As the 2 with the most prestigious backgrounds in the harem, our families wanted us to vie for position, and the emperor wanted us to clash. But we never saw eye to eye to begin with. I still remember Lin Xuangshuang's first words to me. Jiang Yu? You? Did your father name you Fish because he thought you looked like a big-headed carp? I flushed crimson with anger. Yet my upbringing prevented my young self from retaliating. I had a smattering of the 4 books and 5 classics. Harboring cunning within. Lin Xuangshuang possessed astonishing martial prowess. Her reverse spear technique was unmatched in the palace. Naturally, our clashes were evenly matched. Naturally, we battled for years. Yet neither of us reached the Empress's throne, someone else snatched it away. Now, exhausted from our skirmishes, we slumped in the courtyard's lounge chairs. Our conversation drifted aimlessly. Jiang Yu. You know, back in the day we were the unrivaled power duo of the harem. How did we lose to that delicate little flower? Lin Shuangshuang sighed. Lin Shuangshuang. With your meager knowledge, calling yourselves the female-male duo? Who was the female? Who was the male? That delicate flower could compose invitation to drink wine. No wonder she charmed the emperor. Your literary skills aren't bad either. If he preferred scholars, you'd have been empress long ago. Lin Shuangshuang rocked the lounge chair with her eyes closed, her expression unconcerned. He doesn't favor literary talent, he just craves novelty. I peeled a grape. Speaking slowly, Lin Shuangshuang sat up straighter. True. Absolutely true. It's not our fault either, we were too busy dueling. He went off seeking true love. If we were to have another round. I stared at her in disbelief. Another round? You wouldn't still want to be empress, would you? Lin Shuangshuang looked thoroughly disinterested. Waving her hands hastily, no. No. Let whoever wants it have it. I'll give you Jiang Yu. I'm not going either. I've fought enough. Even in the harem. I wouldn't go hungry or thirsty. Isn't life sweet enough? We decided to settle down together in the harem. Thanks to our prestigious family backgrounds, we were swiftly elevated to consort status upon entering the palace. We bribed the eunuchs to secure adjacent palaces. I installed a swing and a brazier inside mine. And at Lin Shuangshuang's urging, even set up a card table. These novelty items were introduced by the innocent white flower. And soon they became wildly popular throughout the court. Though we genuinely looked down on the white flower, we couldn't deny it was quite entertaining. Lin Shuangshuang, meanwhile, went so far as to set up a martial arts training ground in her palace. While blades were forbidden in the harem, she managed to craft replicas, just without sharpened edges. Apart from the occasional duty of attending the emperor's bedchamber, we felt we were living like gods. One day, I invited Lin Shuangshuang to my palace for grilled meat. She bit into a huge chunk of lamb. What were we fighting about back then? She said. Look how happy we are now. I watched her devour it without a care for her appearance. It's all because you looked down on me back then, thinking I was all prim and proper. Jiang Yu, eat up. With that, Lin Shuangshuang shoved a large meat skewer into my hands. Honestly, besides disliking me, wasn't it all because the emperor kept stirring trouble? One day he'd lavish you with gifts. The next he'd linger in my palace, leaving the empress's throne vacant. To keep our maternal clan in check. He's got so many schemes. I chewed the lamb skewer slowly, it was delicious. Pfft! What a spiteful little devil. If not for him, we wouldn't have lost our child and ended up meeting in the cold palace. Don't speak such gloomy words on a fine day. Drink up. I had some fine wine brought. Eating, drinking, and feasting under the moon with Lin Shuangshuang. It's been so long since we had a day like this. Life in the cold palace was always cold leftovers and the oppression of the little white flower empress. It wasn't easy, but I never imagined that in this life, our common enemy, little white flower, would arrive so swiftly. The emperor went out to relieve the disaster, and upon his return, he brought back little white flower. Lin Shuangshuang and I looked at each other in disbelief. Not a single day of peace was granted to us. The emperor hosted a celebratory banquet to reward the ministers who had distinguished themselves in the relief efforts. We sat in our consort seats. I watched the song and dance performances at the banquet, while Lin Shuangshuang buried her head in her food. Spotting the little white flower in the crowd, I quickly tugged at Lin Shuangshuang's sleeve. Lin Shuangshuang caught my glance and frowned, realizing what I meant. This moment had arrived a full 10 years early. Could our return have altered things? I whispered urgently to Lin Shuangshuang, I think she's about to perform. Lin Shuangshuang froze. Then recalled, I remember her presenting that dance to the emperor back then, the feathered robe dance. I nodded. Lin Shuangshuang sighed, surely it can't come this early in this lifetime? After finishing this pork hock, I'll be reporting to the cold palace. I was utterly speechless. If we weren't in the palace hall, I'd have yanked her ear. Lin Shuangshuang, where's your spirit? You were so eager to fight me back then. And this little white flower just appeared and scared you silly? The two of us together, could we really not handle her? Watch my signals and act accordingly. I summoned a young palace maid and gave her instructions. Then I turned to Lin Shuangshuang and told her to prepare swords. When the time comes, you'll enter the dance with your sword and perform a sword routine. How about using invitation to drink? I can certainly do that, I replied. Jiang Yu, you're so clever. What's this called? It's called making sure others have no path to follow. I watched as the performance lineup approached the little white flower's turn. I raised my cup to toast the emperor. Your Majesty, beneath this moonlit glow, your servant has also arranged songs and dances. Might we summon them to add to the festivities? The emperor graciously consented. The dancers then surged forward from the rear, interposing themselves into the original performance line. Heaven's gates stand heavy as the night lingers on. Celestial clouds and divine melodies dance in rainbow robes. The dancers swayed with grace, their movements poetic and picturesque. Not only the ministers, but even the emperor himself watched with rapt attention. As the dance concluded, the emperor praised it repeatedly. Lin Shuangshuang, who had been eating a large pork hock, paused to admire the performance. Jiang Yu, you're something else. You only saw it twice? Or was it 3 times? Yet you remember it so clearly. This isn't a complete recreation, but it's pretty close, right? I nodded, sipping lightly, my heart brimming with joy. My memory has always been exceptional. Even before entering the palace, I was renowned as a talented scholar in the capital. My grandfather once said that if I were a son, I would rival my brothers. From a distance, I couldn't make out little white flower's expression, but I knew she must be seething with hatred. Consort Yu, this dance is exquisite. Is it from the Jiang family? The emperor asked, finally catching on. No, Your Majesty. I happened to discover it among the common folk. I thought such a beautiful dance must be shared with Your Majesty. I replied. Ha ha ha. Truly splendid. Consort Yu, you have a kind heart. Your Majesty, how can you only watch Consort Yu? I have also prepared a dance. Lin Shuangshuang stood up and said. What a lively evening. Consort Lin also wishes to perform, bring forth her dance at once. Lin Shuangshuang now bore a faint resemblance to her former self, her performance was bound to succeed. That dog emperor adores watching us vie for his favor. Lin Shuangshuang drew her sword. Rising slowly, she began to dance, wielding her blade with such power it seemed to move the very heavens. Accompanied by the melody of invitation to drink, heaven has endowed me with talents that must be put to use, though gold may be spent. It will return again. Youthful vigor, bold and unrestrained. I was mesmerized. Lin Shuangshuang possessed a radiant beauty, her eyes sparkling with vitality. As she spun and drew her sword, her spirit soared with heroic grandeur, utterly unlike the delicate beauties. Every smile and frown of hers evoked the image of a female commander. The emperor, too, was transfixed. He remained lost in thought for a long while. Consort Lin, most thoughtful. This dance truly evokes the spirit of your late father in his prime. How valiant he was, leading 3,000 troops to defeat the northern kingdom's 10,000. I am deeply moved. Come, drink. The ministers below echoed his praise, especially the military officers, who rejoiced as if they had won a great victory. Consort Lin possesses her father's spirit. Lin Xuangshuang stepped down from the stage and winked at me. I secretly gave her a thumbs up. We clinked our cups across the distance. Next came Little White Flower. She merely recited a poem and danced casually for a few moments. The verses were exquisite. I must admit she possessed genuine talent. Yet after the two preceding dances, her performance felt rather lackluster. Several civil officials still clapped. The emperor glanced at Little White Flower and inquired her name. She responded shyly. Yet the emperor offered no praise nor reward. I knew this meant she was still to be taken into the palace. Lin Xuangshuang was speechless. And so was I. The real battle was yet to come. Still, it was far better than my past life. Back then, after Little White Flower performed the rainbow robe dance, the emperor had lavished praise and granted her an official rank immediately. Sure enough, trouble struck on the very first day. The Little White Flower, clad in white, collapsed weeping into the emperor's embrace in the imperial garden. The sunlight was perfect. The Little White Flower, dressed in white, danced gracefully in the imperial garden, attracting several butterflies. A beauty like a painting, with butterflies entering the scene. The emperor was mesmerized. Who are you, daring to dance here? Your Majesty. I merely saw the falling blossoms and recalled my homeland, pondering when spring flowers and autumn moons would cease. I couldn't help but dance. Are you the maiden who recited poetry at the banquet? The emperor froze, unable to recall for a long moment. Only when the chief eunuch, Zhang Gonggong, reminded him did the memory surface. How dare you? Why do you not kneel before His Majesty? And to address him as I? Which palace do you belong to? Who taught you such manners? Zhang Gonggong shrieked in a high-pitched voice. The Little White Flower swayed unsteadily, and the surrounding butterflies scattered in alarm. The emperor waved his hand dismissively. Enough. Enough. It was this servant who behaved improperly. The emperor gently helped the Little White Flower to her feet and guided her to a stone bench nearby. Where is your homeland? How did you come to feel the melancholy of spring and autumn? Your features don't resemble those of the northern lands. Your Majesty, I come from a wondrous place, where we possess many ingenious ideas and inventions. I have studied local chronicles since childhood. Could there truly be a place unknown to me? Xiao Baihua nodded earnestly, then giggled softly. In every way, we differ from here, even in our food. Every household can afford fine salt. Fine salt? That's reserved for the imperial palace. How do you produce it? Your Majesty, allow me to explain. As she spoke, Little White Flower leaned against the emperor. Eunuch Zhang hesitated to intervene, but the emperor made no move to stop her. Lin Xuangshuang and I were gathering flowers in the imperial garden to make honeydew when we came face to face. Lin Xuangshuang, ever sharp-eyed, spotted them first. What rotten luck, didn't check the almanac before leaving. Lin Xuangshuang covered her face with a handkerchief. Does that handkerchief make you invisible to them? Lin Xuangshuang shot me a glare. Stop dawdling. We'll have to face them anyway, let's get it over with. There's pork hocks for lunch. We approached and paid our respects to the emperor. Little White Flower, who had been speaking, froze upon seeing us. Empress Lin and consort you. The imperial garden is truly bustling today. The emperor chuckled. That young lady was just recounting tales of her homeland, truly enlightening. Your Majesty, Lin Xuangshuang said, her eyes glistening with allure as she fixed them on the emperor. I overheard you chatting quite happily with this young lady. Were you discussing the wonders of foreign lands? My father told me stories too. I chimed in. The western regions have beautiful women who are bold and free-spirited. So different from ours here. And the sweat-blood horses, they say their sweat looks like blood when they sweat. Not just the sweat-blood horses, but also the Western region's wine. We only get to taste it during tribute ceremonies. Wine. Indeed. That is a true delicacy. Lin Shuangshuang and I chatted back and forth. We deliberately ignored Xiaobai. Whenever she spoke, we steered the conversation elsewhere. Xiaobai watched, unable to join in. She stammered for a long while. Finally, as noon approached and the gathering was about to end, she managed to blurt out, "You. That wine? I can make it too." All three of us turned to Little White Flower. Lin Shuangshuang looking utterly incredulous. That would be a treat indeed. Though whether you can actually brew it. I can. Little White Flower's face flushed crimson. Excellent. Then wait until you brew that wine. I shall reward you handsomely, the Emperor declared decisively. Lin Shuangshuang and I retreated to the shade of a tree, finally catching our breath. I used to just find you irritating, but now seeing Little White Flower is even worse. Court intrigue is exhausting. Ugh. Lin Shuangshuang stretched lazily. Her mood ruined since early morning because of her. Her character is just off. Always scheming in the shadows. Calling it court intrigue. I agreed. Exactly. Our son is gone. Whether her son lives or dies has nothing to do with us. She probably ruined her own child. Our rivalry was fair play, nothing like her underhanded tactics. TSK. Right. Anyone can be empress. Just not her. Come on. Let's grab some pork knuckle. Don't even think about it. Today's pork knuckles are from the kitchen, absolutely divine. I made an awesome gesture. Lin Shuangshuang happily quickened her pace to catch up, whistling as she went. What do you think she'll pull next? That very night, Lin Shuangshuang set up a small pot in her palace, insisting on inviting me to plot something together. A cool breeze blew as meat simmered in the pot, and a little eunuch poured us full cups of fine wine. Here, try this ginger fish. Back when I guarded the frontier with my father, the soldiers always ate like this. When it's cold, boiling meat in plain water in a big pot, that's truly delicious. Lin Shuangshuang picked out a piece of meat for me, her eyes crinkling like a little fox's. I took a bite, the savory flavor bursting in my mouth. It was indeed delicious. Back in the Jiang household, we were too fussy, never had anything like this. Of course. You scholars wouldn't understand a soldier's pleasures. Too bad we can't have open flames in the palace, otherwise we'd set up a stall roasting live fish. That's truly heavenly. Lin Shuangshuang dug in with her chopsticks, urging me to eat quickly while it was hot. After a while of scrambling for bites, we both belched in unison. You say this time. Burp. We've arrived at this moment. Little White Flower is so tender she seems to be dripping with moisture. Bullying her now makes me feel like some old hag. But when I think of my son, I just can't swallow my pride. Lin Shuangshuang had drunk some wine. Her face flushed crimson. Ha ha ha. Or else you'll have to wait until she grows up a bit, then you won't even be able to bully her anymore. Seeing the atmosphere stiffen, I laughed. Blah blah blah. That's just defeatist talk. We were blinded by greed before, fighting over some imperial throne and letting others take advantage. Now we're fully focused on battling her. I refuse to believe we can't win. Yes. 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 We can win. Heroine Shuangshuang is the strongest. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Jiang Yu, you're making fun of me. I'll get mad. Lin Shuangshuang's beautiful face was now puffed up like a steamed bun. I grinned as I ruffled her hair, coaxing her like a little sister. It was only after she unexpectedly met the emperor in the imperial garden that I finally understood. Even though we'd humiliated her at the banquet, she still managed to gain favor with His Majesty. The emperor needs her. Her ingenious ideas, refined salt, poetry, ice cellars are genuinely beneficial to our people. So we'll wait. Let her spread these innovations first. Then we'll take her down. Once they're widespread, she'll be a goddess. The emperor might even dissolve his harem for her. Jiang, what exactly do you want? When are you going to slap her already? Lin Shuangshuang said, reaching out to pinch my cheek. You're right. In our past lives, we clashed and she emerged as the virtuous one. This time, we'll avoid conflict. Just look at this overwhelming fortune. Don't you see envy brewing? Then we'll fan the flames. Lin Shuangshuang eyed me sideways. Jiang, I get it now. You literati are full of twisted schemes. You wicked woman. Why are you cursing me? Even if I schemed against you before. You hit me. What gives you the right to call me wicked? We wrestled and bickered for a while. Then had the maid set up 2 reclining chairs to digest our meal. Perhaps the atmosphere was just too perfect. Lin Shuangshuang asked me, her eyes dreamy, if you hadn't entered the palace, what would you have done? Probably still sought a marriage alliance. The Jiang family places the utmost importance on social standing. My life might not have been as good as it is now. At least I wouldn't have to worry about food, clothing, or daily necessities. But honestly, I still dream of becoming a traveling scholar. I could wander the land, seeing the mountains and rivers everywhere. I'd never marry. Ever since I was little, I've loved reading storybooks. My dream is to don men's clothes and fight on the battlefield. Let me tell you, when I snuck into my father's military camp as a child, many of those newly enlisted couldn't even beat me. Lin Shuangshuang burst into laughter, clinking her wine cup. The weather was growing cooler, and I felt heavy and constantly drowsy. That day, Lin Shuangshuang came over to my place all excited, without even bringing a single maid. Jiang, wake up. Little White Flower actually has some skill, she really managed to brew wine. Oh, I know. Didn't she do it in her past life? See, the emperor granted her a title earlier. I bet he's about to favor her. That little white flower, if she gains favor, she'll be walking on air. In my past life, I overheard complaints from the imperial kitchen about how many grapes were wasted. Half of the tribute grapes had to be consumed just to produce a few measly cups. But the emperor adored rare delights. After tasting Little White Flower's wine, he was overjoyed and made an exception, elevating the commoner Little White Flower to the rank of consort. That very night, he summoned her to his bedchamber. From then on, her favor grew unceasingly, and her palace chambers became a bustling hub. She disdained dealing with the other consorts and looked down on them all. What do you have besides imperial favor? You're nothing but products of a feudal era, dependent on men. Of course I'm different from you lot. You couldn't conceive of such things even if you racked your brains for 800 years. Lin Shuangshuang and I had heard enough of these shocking words in our past lives, we were long accustomed to them. But the concubines of the harem, upon first encountering Little White Flower, were all seething with rage. Still, this did nothing to dampen Little White Flower's rise to prominence. Ever since she danced her way into the emperor's heart in the imperial garden, she took particular delight in wearing pale or white robes. She would stand tall with her waist held high, her figure slender enough to be grasped in one hand. Paired with her delicate, pitifully charming expression, she resembled an ethereal fairy. This was an attire that even the emperor found captivating. Even the lesser consorts, who usually favored bright rose-red robes, began to emulate her style. Lin Shuangshuang couldn't help but think, how unlucky. When did funeral fashion become trendy? In no time. Some imitated Little White Flower. Others envied her, and she became the undisputed center of attention in the harem. Because Little White Flower was so favored, the time allotted for attending to other palaces dwindled. Lin Shuangshuang and I simply started staying together more often, cracking melon seeds and gossiping. Oh my! Counting the days. It's about time for consort Yang to give birth. This is the first child since the emperor ascended the throne in my previous life. Lin Shuangshuang exclaimed excitedly. What? Are you close with consort Yang? No. No. No, I don't know her. I'm not close with anyone. If I had to pick someone, it'd be you. I chuckled. Same here. When I first entered the palace, I couldn't stand anyone, only Lin Shuangshuang kept bouncing around in front of me. So we're kindred spirits. Then, pft, pft, pft. Don't you find that disgusting? Jiang Yu? I composed myself. Do you think consort Ying's child will be born safely this time? Lin Shuangshuang shrugged indifferently. Why wouldn't it? Didn't she give birth last lifetime? Ah. You mean last lifetime there was no little white flower? That makes it hard to say. The little white flower often attended the emperor's bedchamber too. Why didn't she conceive as swiftly as consort Yang? Last lifetime. Her son could have been crown prince. How could she be content now? Of course she's discontent. Lin Shuangshuang nodded. Not just discontent, I'd say her ambition's sky high. The little white flower was naturally seething. Since consort Yang's pregnancy, the emperor began seeking her out constantly, neglecting the little white flower for half a month. So little white flower began exerting herself elsewhere, frantically unleashing her ingenuity. Today she debated policy essays with imperial examination candidates. Tomorrow she competed with the Astronomical Bureau predicting weather. The day after, she instructed farmers on crop cultivation. Some endeavors succeeded. Others failed. But little white flower's reputation for erudition and talent spread far and wide, both inside and outside the court. A wave of praise arose, proclaiming little white flower a divine maiden. The emperor grew curious, frequently visiting her palace to question her secrets, and soon found himself sleeping within her chambers. The other consorts were all neglected. My maidservants hinted around, asking if I should send gifts to the emperor. I waved them off, continuing to sprawl on my chaise lounge, basking in the sun. Perhaps winter was approaching, for I felt increasingly drowsy. Jiang Yu, wake up. Lin Shuangshuang called out beside my ear. Now is the perfect moment. I've already instructed my Lin family agents to spread the goddess theory. Got it. I've also written to my elder brother. He knows what to do. Just wait. In a few days, we'll have quite the show. Jiang Yu, you're so sneaky. You're keeping secrets from me? Lin Shuangshuang's eyes widened. I'm sneaky. But what are you? I said, reaching out to tickle her. Lin Shuangshuang deftly dodged my hand and pinned mine down. Hey. Stop messing around. Seriously. Why have you been so sleepy lately? Every time I see you, you look like you're half asleep. Be honest, are you pregnant? I was indeed exhausted, my eyes heavy and unfocused. Lin Shuangshuang's words still sent a jolt through me. Counting the days. It seemed the drowsiness began a month after receiving imperial favor. I stared blankly at Lin Shuangshuang. Shoo. Don't tell anyone. I don't want to become a target. Lin Shuangshuang nodded. I know. When I entered the palace, father gave me a wet nurse. I'll have her come see you when the time comes. I looked at her gratefully, but Lin Shuangshuang shrugged it off. Jiang Yu, you're so sentimental. I spent too much of my childhood wielding swords and spears. Childbirth is no easy feat. When I was carrying Kuiner, it was already 1,000 trials and tribulations. That's why I resented that delicate little flower so much. If I could, I'd never bear another child. From the moment I opened my eyes, I secretly took fertility-suppressing herbs. Lin Shuangshuang's expression darkened. Seeing her listless state, I comforted her. What's the big deal? My child will be your child. If my heir ascends the throne, Our dynasty will have 2 empress dowagers. We'll truly be the unrivaled power duo. Lin Shuangshuang burst into laughter. Jiang Yu. You're so funny. I don't care, I believe you. This lifetime, we will protect our child. I truly was pregnant. The Lin family midwife examined me and said it was already over 2 months along, though not yet visible. I grew ever more cautious, avoiding the delicate flower whenever possible. I spent my days secluded in my own palace, waiting for Lin Shuangshuang to come find me. While I lived peacefully in my corner, the imperial court was in turmoil. My brother's letter stated, the white flower's various policies have proven largely effective, driving progress. Ministers petitioned to crown the white flower empress, declaring her unmatched in the realm. Some old factions, clinging to tradition, fiercely opposed it, causing heated debates in court. Yet the emperor remained silent. My brother concluded his letter, Is my sister well? This woman's influence grows too great. My sister must not become involved. I burned the letter with wax. The entire court petitioning for little white flower was naturally fueled by my Jiang family's efforts. I worked within the court, while Lin Shuangshuang operated outside, personally elevating little white flower to the status of a divine maiden, one whose prominence overshadowed even the emperor. Lin Shuangshuang also brought news. Commoners had begun worshipping the divine maiden, and wealthy merchants even sought to cast a golden statue of little white flower. Within the palace, little white flower grew increasingly unrestrained. According to the young eunuchs, little white flower now freely enters the imperial study to deliberate matters alongside the ministers. A court lady who favors her tried to advise against such behavior. She retorted, You ministers are indeed ignorant of your place. But I am different. I am no less than those ministers. I imagine the emperor would have spat blood upon hearing such words. Indeed, the emperor did spit blood and began to neglect little white flower. Called neglect, but truly a warning. He began spending every other night in other concubines' chambers. While the court still fawned over the little white flower, the harem sensed the shift. That day, the emperor came to my chambers to see me, pregnant. I desperately wanted to avoid attending him and was scheming to find an excuse. But the little white flower stormed into my palace in a rage. Seeing her fury, I recalled that in my past life, I would have lashed out at her fiercely. Now, however, I merely stared at her quietly, feigning concern as I inquired, What troubles you? Consort Hua? What has happened? Why such urgency? Shut up. I wasn't speaking to you. The little white flower pointed at me, breathless with rage. I obediently fell silent, sitting quietly to the side. What concerns you? Consort Hua? The emperor inquired, his tone displeased. Your Majesty, I just finished brewing wine, hoping to share it with you. Who knew you'd be with another woman? Didn't you promise to favor only me? And I even prepared some new surprises. The little white flower reached out to tug at the emperor's sleeve. Nonsense. The emperor scolded outwardly, yet his ears flushed crimson. I studied little white flower closely today. Her attire was indeed thoughtfully arranged, no excessive jewelry. Her cheeks dusted with a delicate blush, and pink powder applied in many places, radiating a girlish charm. Her collar was specially styled, and bells were tied to her ankles. Truth be told, if I were a man, I'd be charmed too. Little white flower leaned close and whispered something in the emperor's ear. He immediately drifted off, following her like a cloud. This old emperor, he worries she'll outshine him. Yet he can't resist her beauty and ingenuity. Seems the firewood isn't burning fiercely enough. No sooner had they left than Lin Shuangshuang hurried over. I just heard little white flower came to your chambers. She didn't do anything to you, did she? I'm worried sick about my son. I shook my head. No. The emperor's still here. What could she possibly do to me? You're so worried about your son. Or maybe you're worried about yourself. Big head fish. Ha ha. The next day, the emperor promoted Lin Xuangshuang and me to imperial consorts, the only two in the harem, and entrusted us with managing its affairs. He bestowed many treasures upon us as well. This undoubtedly served as a warning shot to Little White Flower. Though Little White Flower enjoyed imperial favor and spent her days in the emperor's company, she remained merely a consort. She grew even more disruptive, constantly opposing Lin Xuangshuang and me at every turn. But both the imperial court and the harem were filled with people from the Lin and Jiang families. Her schemes were truly childish, and lacking any confidence. She left herself open to exposure. Because Lin Xuangshuang possessed a face of unparalleled beauty, the emperor cast a few extra glances her way during the banquet. In retaliation, she released several rats into Lin Xuangshuang's palace quarters. But Lin Xuangshuang was no one to be frightened by rats. Having guarded the frontier with her father, she had even slain tigers, let alone mere rodents. She promptly caught the rats and prepared to release them into Little White Flower's palace. Instead, she scared the White Flower Palace out of her wits. Lin Xuangshuang couldn't help but marvel. She's so weak, how did she manage to get us banished to the cold palace back then? I even bribed a palace maid in her quarters. With just a little silver, she spilled everything happening inside the White Flower Palace. After a while, perhaps realizing she couldn't outmaneuver us, all her schemes came to naught. She then set her sights on the emperor. According to her palace maids, when the emperor rested in her quarters, she demanded, in our land, it's one man, one woman, for life. The emperor's eyes widened. She pressed on, these women in the harem do nothing but scheme and quarrel. They're useless. Better to dismiss them all and set them free. As the saying goes, life is precious, but freedom is priceless. The emperor, furious, flung his sleeves and left Little White Flower's palace. When Lin Xuangshuang heard the maidservants retelling, she nearly vomited. If she's so capable, let the emperor disperse the harem already. I've long wanted to lead troops into battle. I smiled and shook my head. How could that be? Without the harem, how would he balance our power against our fathers and brothers? How would he have heirs? Ah. So Little White Flower is useless too. Enough of that. Let's go eat hot pot. Having failed with the emperor, Little White Flower returned to her palace and smashed several bottles and cups in anger. Still furious, she took brutal action against Consort Yang. When Lin Xuangshuang and I arrived at the scene, Consort Yang was already lying in a pool of blood. Though we knew Little White Flower would act, we hadn't expected such cruelty. I could barely bear to watch a vibrant life moments ago, now lifeless. One corpse, two lives lost. The emperor flew into a rage. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. Find out which blind fool dared harm my child. The room was filled with kneeling figures. Yet no one dared speak. The grand eunuch beside the emperor summoned palace attendants for questioning. The attendant began, it was Consort Yang who accidentally caused the fall. Lin Xuangshuang immediately grew displeased. How could a fall cause such injuries? Consort Yang and I are close. She is the most cautious person. She wouldn't even dare to bump into anything. Your Majesty, this attendant is clearly not telling the truth. Is that so? Daring to deceive me? Bring him here. Give him a beating. The palace attendant was dragged out and received 20 lashes. Then brought back in, bloodied and battered. Still refusing to retract his statement, he was struck dead by the emperor. The emperor then turned his gaze to another palace attendant. Your Majesty, I am also innocent. No one has entered Consort Yang's palace. Lin Xuangshuang remarked. It seems these palace servants aren't afraid of punishment. How about this, let's use the military camp's methods for punishing prisoners. Bind them and put them with the wolves. Those young wolves. Starved for days. We'll see living people for the first time. Let's see if anyone dares to shield them then. Xiaobai glared viciously at Lin Shuangshuang. I interjected, could it be Consort Hua behind this? Consort Lin says a thorough investigation is warranted. The attendants in Consort Yang's palace began trembling. Some already pale with fear. Xiao Baihua instantly bristled. How could I possibly recognize any of you? Your Majesty. Please investigate thoroughly. I've been brewing wine in my palace all this time. Never leaving the palace grounds. It's those palace maids spreading slanderous lies to frame me. The emperor fell silent. And the consort's eyes burned with intensity as they fixed their gaze upon him. Then investigate. Investigate thoroughly. The emperor glared at the innocent-looking concubine, summoning more palace attendants for interrogation. Meanwhile, Lin Shuangshuang ordered the preparation of wolf cages. The overwhelming stench of blood in the chamber, combined with the horrific sight of Consort Yang's plight, caused me to faint. When I awoke, I found myself lying in my own palace chambers, with the emperor and Lin Shuangshuang present. The emperor sat by the bedside, gazing at me with affection. Weakly, I spoke, Your Majesty. What has happened to me? My beloved. You are with child. The emperor beamed. Wonderful. Wonderful. But I couldn't rejoice. The secret was finally out. Your Majesty. I'm afraid. I fear ending up like Consort Yang. Tears threatened to spill. My beloved. Do not weep. How can you cry while carrying our heir? Yang Pin's fate was an accident. I will never let anything happen to you. The emperor's eyes flickered. Seeing I had awakened, the emperor comforted me briefly before departing. He immediately assigned numerous attendants to care for me and ordered Xiao Baihua barred from entering my palace. Lin Shuangshuang fumed as she recounted, after questioning the palace attendants. They confirmed only Little White Flower had visited. Yet the emperor refused to investigate further. He merely confined her to her quarters. It's blatantly obvious, this emperor truly fails Consort Yang's sincere devotion. Inside, I only sneered coldly. Little White Flower's schemes were half-baked, leaving a scar on the emperor's heart. No amount of love could withstand such malice and calculation. After Little White Flower was confined, she behaved herself for a while. But it was only a facade. Palace maids whispered she secretly courted court officials, exchanged letters with influential ministers, and even used the pretext of promoting her novelty items to frequently interact with the imperial guard. Lin Shuangshuang and I saw through her every move. Yet we had no time to confront her directly. The northern kingdom invaded, capturing several border cities in quick succession. The emperor, enraged, dispatched a large army to reinforce the border troops. Lin Shuangshuang followed the battle reports daily. While nurturing my pregnancy, I followed the frontline intelligence. The entire court was in turmoil, fearing that any misstep might displease the emperor. Yet Little White Flower had a huge argument with him. Rumor had it their political views clashed. Little White Flower wanted the princess to enter a political marriage. She passionately urged the emperor, even presenting troop strength and defense maps to illustrate potential casualties. My belly grew larger day by day. Stroking my unborn child, I recalled, this campaign hasn't gone smoothly either. In my previous life, the court lost 30,000 troops in the northern deserts. Lin Shuangshuang sneered. It's all because the court insisted on using that General Xia. He was overly aggressive and fell into an enemy trap. If it were our Lin family army, anyone making such a mistake would be flogged. General Xia is the emperor's man. This time might end just like last time. Reactions to the Little White Flower being slapped varied. The harem mostly rejoiced in secret. Yet many from the former court and the common people spoke up for the divine maiden. Some even supported her above the emperor's divine authority. If the divine maiden says no war, then there will be no war. Isn't this the mandate of heaven? Support the divine maiden. Some were genuine, others planted by the peace faction. The little white flower seemed emboldened, petitioning the emperor with even greater fervor. They clashed fiercely several times over the following days. That day, Lin Xuangshuang and I were cracking melon seeds, discussing how the current court's divine maiden cult might be clouding the little white flower's judgment. A young eunuch rushed in with urgent news. Your Highness, Consort Yu. Oh my. You must come see. Consort Hua poisoned the emperor. The Xianjing Hall is in utter chaos. What? Lin Xuangshuang and I both gaped in shock. Even in my past life, little white flower had never been this bold. Without even tidying our appearance, we rushed to the Xianjing Hall. The moment we entered, we saw the emperor writhing in agony on the floor. The little white flower stood triumphant, cackling through the hall. You dog emperor. You dared disobey me. You wouldn't even listen to the words of a divine maiden. Since you refuse to be my puppet, I shall follow the example of Wu Zetian. Hua Fei. How dare you? I snapped at her fiercely. Quick! Seal off the palace. Carry the emperor to his bedchamber. Summon the imperial physicians, the eunuchs and maidservants, previously in disarray, sprang into action as if guided by a central figure. Watching me issue commands, little white flower's laughter turned to fury. How did you know I poisoned the son of heaven? I thought I'd been discreet enough. Who'd have thought it would be discovered? The palace is filled with my people now. I dare you to come forward. Xiao Bai Hua. Open your eyes wide and see whose people truly fill this hall. Yet no one heeded her. Those summoning physicians did so, those tending the emperor attended to him. The guards instinctively stood by my side. Didn't you all worship me as a goddess? What's wrong with a goddess becoming emperor? Jiang Yu. She's gone mad. Lin Xuangshuang snatched a sword from a nearby guard and pressed it against little white flower's throat. You framed the emperor and stirred up the people. You still want to be emperor? Let's see if you even have the life left to do it. You dare kill me? You insignificant concubine. Little white flower stared at Lin Xuangshuang in disbelief. Oh, I forgot. You think all consorts are mere appendages to men. My hands can certainly be stained with blood. Lin Xuangshuang spat venomously, dislocating Xiao Baihua's shoulder before tossing her to the guards. Consort Hua has disrupted the imperial order. Witnesses and evidence are gathered. Take her down. Xiao Baihua watched the scene unfold in utter disbelief. These were the very people who had pledged allegiance to her moments before. She had planned to launch this palace coup without anyone noticing. But how could any movement within these walls escape my eyes? After dealing with little white flower, Lin Xuangshuang walked over to me. I was staring blankly at the emperor. He lay motionless on the bed, surrounded by several imperial physicians who were at their wits' end. Lin Xuangshuang asked, "What's wrong?" I shook my head. The physician just examined him. Little white flower's poison is extremely potent. The emperor may remain unconscious forever. It's far too potent. What shall we do now? Jiang Yu? Lin Xuangshuang froze, pressing her fingers hard into the emperor's arm. There was no response. With the Empress Dowager deceased and the emperor an only son, the crown prince, frail in health, had long been sent to his fiefdom. Within the palace walls, only Lin Xuangshuang and I held the highest esteem. I looked at Lin Xuangshuang. Didn't you want to go to the battlefield? Lead the Lin family army. Take the emperor's edict. Lin Xuangshuang stared at me in disbelief. You mean? I nodded. The emperor cannot govern now. The court faces internal turmoil and external threats. Young General Xia is reckless and not the best choice for this war. Your father is advanced in years. The Lin family army answers to you. But Jiang Yu, if I go, what dangers await you in the court? Do you realize how perilous it is? I smiled at Lin Xuangshuang. If you, Lin Xuangshuang, can lead troops into battle, how could I? Yu, fail to defend this court? You underestimate me. I've never considered myself inferior to any man, and neither should you. Lin Shuangshuang clasped my hand, in past lives and this one. You alone are my equal. I trust you. Yu. I clasped her hand in return. At first light the next day, Lin Shuangshuang led her troops into battle, leaving behind a garrison to protect me. The moment she departed, I was swamped with work. Court ministers squabbled incessantly. Those loyal to the little white flower demanded to know her whereabouts. The harem descended into chaos, making rest impossible. I had a eunuch announce the emperor was unwell and confined to bed, unable to attend morning court. I relayed the minister's discussions, and memorials were submitted as usual for the emperor's review. Occasionally, voices questioned whether I had seized control of the emperor. I had the imperial guards execute a few traitors to intimidate the court officials. During court, I declared angrily, while the northern kingdom threatens our borders, this court wastes its time on seditious nonsense instead of strategizing for our troops. I suspect you're all spies sent by the enemy. If I catch any of you disrupting court order, I shall report it all to His Majesty, and remember, I carry his heir within me. Watch your heads. Fortunately, my elder brother still stood by me. My attendants were capable, and the child within me behaved obediently. Memorials poured in daily like snowflakes. Each day, I labored to imitate the emperor's handwriting in reviewing them. Reviewing the memorials wasn't difficult, the challenge lay in the imitation. At first, it took me 3 times as long. Gradually, I grew adept, mastering an imperial handwriting so lifelike it was indistinguishable. Thus, I barely managed to uphold the affairs of state. I dare not slack off, lest Lin Shuangshuang find cause to mock me. Ever since she arrived at the army's location, victory reports have poured in relentlessly. Lin Shuangshuang even wrote in her letter, Yu, you have no idea how utterly thrilled I am with this battle. I chased that northern general for 10 miles, driving him deep into the mountains. A general forced to hide in the woods, how laughable is that? Those northern soldiers are so stupid. How did I guess their supply location so easily? Or am I just too clever? That General Xia is hopeless. I crushed him on the first day, and now he trails behind me like a lackey. And these greenhorns? They look like they've never seen battle. Half a day on horseback and they're already exhausted. I endured years in the imperial palace and still outlast them. If the Lin family army were like this, it'd be utterly disgraceful. She wasn't bragging. She truly was a natural-born female commander. Had she not been summoned to the palace, the battlefield would have been her true domain. How wonderful, this lifetime finally granted her wish. I was so happy I shed tears. Just as everything was turning around, I went into labor. Though I'd given birth before in my past life, the pain still lasted a full day and night. Even through the agony, I kept thinking I had to push faster, otherwise I wouldn't be able to prepare the banquet for the army's triumphant return, nor could I award Lin Shuangshuang her commendation. At dawn, the child was finally born. Exhausted, I fell into a deep sleep. When I awoke again, before my eyes stood a dark-skinned, gaunt Lin Shuangshuang. Was I dreaming? How did you return? I hesitated before speaking. No dream. No dream. I came back after the battle ended. I was just worried about you, so I rode back ahead. Lin Shuangshuang chuckled softly, but I burst into tears. Yu, don't cry. Look at our child. He's so healthy, crying so loudly. You name him. Gazing at the wailing infant, I smiled. All right. We'll call him Kuaner, Li Kuan. Lin Shuangshuang froze, then touched her own eyes. That was the name of the prince who had died young in her previous life. Good. He shall be Kuaner. He is our child. with both literary and martial prowess. He will surely become the finest emperor. Lin Xuangshuang returned with her army. No one in the court dared deny this female general. The palace and its inner chambers had long been purged by me. My son ascended the throne directly as the Son of Heaven. Yet, being too young, he was assisted by 2 empress dowagers. Yes, 2 empress dowagers. Me and Lin Xuangshuang. Side story. From the moment Li Kuan could remember, he knew he had 2 mothers, one scholarly, one martial. Jiang Yu would always cradle him, softly reciting poetry and prose, explaining taxes and official posts. Lin Xuangshuang, however, would toss him into the training grounds, refusing to feed him until the sun set. No amount of whining would change her mind. Both mothers governed the state with great skill. The nation quietly showed signs of a dawning golden age. Neighboring small states had all submitted, and the court actively developed agriculture and trade, opening several major trade routes. Empress Dowager Jiang always said, this golden age is meant for him. All he needed to do was study diligently each day. But one day, when he climbed over the wall to play in the inner palace, he saw a truly terrifying person. He touched his face, it felt as soft and dewy as a young girl's skin. Not the dry, wrinkled face of someone confined to the cold palace. Li Lin. I'm the Empress. I'm the Empress. Li Kuan was terrified. He returned to ask his mothers who that person was, but they only smiled without answering. Later, Li Kuan learned the truth. Those who coveted the dragon throne were banished to the cold palace. In his notebook, he wrote, "Greed is like a snake swallowing an elephant." Too young to understand, he asked the Empress Dowager, "You govern the nation so well, and the court ministers respect you. Why don't you become emperor?" Empress Dowager Jiang would always stroke his head and say, "Your mother is too lazy. When you grow up, I'll travel the land to see its rivers and mountains." From Empress Dowager Lin, he learned that Empress Dowager Jiang had never left the palace since she came of age. Empress Dowager Lin always said, "You must honor Jiang Yu well and fulfill the dream of her youth." Li Kuan added another line to his diary, "He must grow up quickly. The